gente. Yo soy tu servidor J. Roldán. Bienvenidos a este show que se llama J. Roldán Speaks. Y si aún no lo saben, ya tengo una cuenta en Spotify. Así que después de este show, quiero que ustedes vayan a Spotify y busquen mi canal que se llama J. Roldán Speaks. Van a ver un perfil mío y abajito de ese perfil hay un botón que se dice Follow. Así que con mucho humildad y mucho agradecimiento, estaría muy agradecido por su sintonía, ¿cierto? Alright guys, are you guys ready for some wonderful messages tonight? Tonight we're gonna do something that I haven't done in quite some time actually. We're gonna talk about poems from the heart. We're gonna talk about short stories from the heart. We're gonna talk about some wonderful life experiences from the heart. I know many of us need that nowadays, and we've been needing it for a long time, regardless of what the situation is. So before I start tonight, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to think back to a time when your heart was moved. Maybe you were just hanging out with a friend and you were looking at, maybe sitting at a park, or maybe just enjoying the day by yourself, and maybe you had this really wonderful treat, ice cream, coffee, I don't know, tea, and you just had this really wonderful sensation. It's just like, wow, this is really a memorable moment. And it doesn't have to be something spectacular. Sometimes it can be just ordinary. But it's in that ordinariness, and you have this amazing realization that it becomes extraordinary, right? That's what makes this such an enlightening memory. Because no matter what is going on in your life, you had this epiphany of realizing, wait a minute, I should probably just enjoy this time now. I should just listen to what my heart is saying right now and dwell on it. So, I want to read some poems that are going to touch all of our hearts tonight. And I'm just going to give you guys a little heads up, alright? Some of these poems are heartwarming, heart-moving, heart-tearing, but also heart-joyous. Really understand the necessity of connecting with our hearts, and also to share it, and also to give a gratitude and a glory to the one that instilled this attribute in us. So why don't you do me a favor? Find a nice cozy place. Maybe you're heading to work, maybe you're just waking up, maybe you're getting ready for bed. right? Listen to audio, you can do that as well. But if not, you can listen and watch the video podcast. And I always post a question in all of my podcasts, especially on Spotify. So if you would love to answer those questions, please do, okay? They're there for you guys, all right? I want to know what you guys think of some of these episodes. I want you to actually pay attention to the information that's being shared here. Sometimes the information is very, very heavy. Sometimes it's lighthearted, but sometimes the question will pertain to the theme. Most of the time, the question will pertain to the theme of the show. So I want to encourage you to answer those questions. I want you to go to Spotify. Once again, download it if you don't have it. Look for my show. It's called J. Roland Speaks. And each episode, or at least most of them episodes, the most recent ones, will have a question for you to ponder, to think about, and reply at your leisure. So welcome to the J. Roland Speaks podcast. Here we go. This first one that we're going to read tonight, guys, is by All right. Like I said, guys, this is a show that is about sharing some good stories and also edifying your heart. But sometimes we read some poems that are going to also move your heart and remind you of some things that probably are very, very, moving. But it's not supposed to make you sad. I just want to clarify that, okay? I mean, let's read this poem. I'll share some stories and we'll move on to the next. Are you guys ready? It's going to be such a great show tonight. Here we go. Should you go first, and I remain to walk the road alone? I'll live in memory's garden, dear, and with happy days we've known, and in spring I'll watch for roses red. When fades the lilac blue, in early fall when brown leaves call, I'll catch a glimpse of you. And should you go first and I remain, for battles to be fought, and each thing you've touched along the way will be a hallowed spot. And I'll hear your voice, and I'll see your smile, and though blindly I may grope, the memory of your helping hand will buoy me on with hope. And should you go first and I remain, to finish with the scroll lengthening shadows shall creep in to make this life seem droll. And we've known so much of happiness, and we've had our cup of joy. A memory is one gift of God that death cannot destroy. And should you go first and I remain, one thing I'd have you do, walk slowly down that long, lone path, for soon I'll follow you, and I want to know each step you take, that I may walk the same for someday down the lonely road. And you'll hear me call your name. To walk the road alone. I'll live in memory's garden, dear. With happy days we've known. In spring I'll watch for roses red, when fades the lilac blue. And every fall when brown leaves call, I'll catch a glimpse of you. And should you remain, and should you go first, and I remain, for battles to be fought, and each thing you've touched along the way will be a hallowed spot. And I'll hear your voice and I'll see your smile. And though blindly I may grope, the memory of your helping hand will buoy me on with hope. Should you go first and I remain, to finish with the scroll, and no lengthening shadow shall creep in, to make this life seem droll. And we've known so much happiness, and we've had our cup of joy, and memory is one gift of God that death cannot destroy. And should you go first and I remain, you, and one thing I'd have you do, my darling, my dear, I want you to walk slowly down that long, lone path, for soon I'll follow you, and I'll want you to know each step you take, that I may walk the same, for someday, down that lonely road, you'll hear me call your name. That was Should You Go First by Albert K. Roswell, sorry. Wow. What a way to start the show, isn't it? Come on, guys. It may be a sad-ish poem, but here's something I want you to remind yourself of, okay? You see, we've known people in our lives that have this amazing, strong relationship. You know, the type of relationship that is like long-lasting and, you know, always fighting for one another. And here's something, before I continue, I need to share this, and I know I've shared this before with others, but some of you guys some of us need this a daily reminder. but some of the longest relationships that has ever existed. And, you know, obviously I can't attest for every single one of them, but by and large, if you actually talk to those couples that have been together for 40 to 50 plus years, right? Or even 30 years, right? I guarantee you, every single one of them, okay? Once again, I can't give you an actual like quantitative study that actually proves this, but in a much more, you know, manageable way, right? If you actually talk to some of these couples that have been together for so long, most of them will tell you that it wasn't done without a lot of arguments. It wasn't done without a lot of dark seasons. It wasn't done without blemishes and heartache. You see, there's something to be learned from these couples, because as we all like to believe, or at least dream about, you know, that we're going to be with someone, or at least find someone that is always going to have these like lovely, like spontaneous vacation time with you, and everything's going to be so like lovey-dovey and just like, oh man, you know, such a great guy, blah blah blah, all these things, right? Like the reality is that's not true. Like the reality is like, no, we're going to fight, and we're going to have arguments, and we're going to have a lot of like little small bickering things to do and say to each other, and you're going to get on my nerves and I'm going to get on your nerves, and guess what? I still want to be with you, because dang woman, whatever it is that you do and say or look, there's something that I saw in you the first time I saw you, and so I want to fight for that one, right? And it goes the other way too, ladies. I mean, you guys aren't exempt, all right? I mean, everything's not about you, okay? And I'm saying this in a very kind-hearted way, right? Like, you're gonna have to do the same thing with the guy, right? There's something really great about him, right? And so you need to nurture that as well. You know, whatever that may be. We compromise. And sometimes that compromise is so moving and so life-changing that the moment that we lose them, our lives are no longer the same. And I think this is what I wanted to share from this poem, because here's a gentleman that, you know, I don't know how long he's been with his woman, and I'm sure she must have been wonderful, and I'm sure she was also a pain. But he was wanting to be with her, and he was wanting to spend life with her. And so the idea here is that when you persevere, and when you fight for one another, your lives adapt to one another, your lives compromise each other, right? And by the way, this word is not a negative word, because many of us tend to think only in the negative sense of this word. It's not about like doing away with whatever it is that you are good at or are comfortable with, okay? No. It's about adapting, okay? And the word compromise in Latin, okay, the root word for compromise is a promise. Okay, it's a promise. When you actually study the etymology of compromiso, okay, you are pledging. And when you pledge, this is your bond. This is the equivalent of a contract, the equivalent of a true handshake. And so the compromise here is that you fight for them, and they fight for you too. So let me share a short little story about my father. He was a young lad, lived in a beautiful little coast town in northern Chile. And he was studying for a math exam. And during that day, he, came across a young woman who was from a different town in the southern part. And they were there on a field trip, and started talking. My father was a very studious man, and my mother was more of the art side. But, she's also very logic oriented as well. But let's just say she was more relentless in pursuing my dad. And I don't know every single detail about the interaction, but I think my dad eventually sort of kind of realized that, he was being pursued by this young lady. And, apparently their families knew each other. And once again, I don't know all the details about it. So I guess that's how they sort of started hanging out and, started dating. And, I remember when I was about 12 years old, or maybe 10, I think it was 10 to 12 years old, around there. And I sensed there was some strange thing going on between my mother and father, and it just didn't look great. It didn't feel normal, didn't feel like something. It just felt really, really strange. And they weren't around each other and all these things, and it just felt really just strange the entire day. And I remember feeling feeling ill about it, just very ill about it. And, I was talking to my brothers about it, and I was kind of asking them, what's going on, all these things. And, they were all just, telling me to just don't worry about it. Just tell me, don't worry about it. Just let it be, all these things. But I don't know. I was listening to them, but I couldn't really, I was only 10 to 12 years old, so I didn't know I don't know how to worry about it. You know what I mean? And, I just, we were sitting around the family dinner table and just really quiet. And it was just strange because, usually we're not. And then, my dad went away. We just hung out together there, and I don't know. I love my father and I just respect him greatly, and I never ever wanted to bother him when he was coming back from work and all these things, because he just worked really hard and stuff. So I just leave him alone and all these things. And my mom was more of the one that interacted with us most of the time. But anyway, so it was like that for several days, and then I just sort of got used to it, and I just kind of let it go. And then I remember that my mom was getting ready to go out, and me and the brothers were just gonna hang out at home. And then I heard a knock on the door, and it was my father. He was all nice and dressed and stuff, and he had these flowers, and of course, it was funny that he knocked on the door because, he had the keys, obviously. And he was basically taking my mom out for a date. And before they left for the date, they came into the living room where me and the brothers were hanging out, and I could see his arm holding her tightly close to him, and she of course was really happy and all these things, and gave each other a kiss, and just told us not to worry. And then they went out and enjoyed the evening, and it was such a great little move, just a really great little subtle move that my dad did. And I just enjoyed. I still remember that picture, I still remember that image in my head of how they were dressed, and just how much they were fighting for one another, and I never questioned every time they had some issues or whatever. I never questioned it again, because I knew from that point on that my father would fight for her, and my mother would fight for him as well, because they loved each other. And like I said, it wasn't always these these peaceful days and all these things, but at the same time they tried their best to make it peaceful, because they loved one another first, right? And I'm going to say something here that may scratch some of y'all's heads a little bit, but they loved each other more than they did us. And I know that sounds a little strange, right? But of course we're always going to be their kids, and we're always going to be their children, so that's never going to go away, right? Like that's an absolute unconditional way of loving your kids, right? But they always loved each other first, right? And they always loved each other even more than they did us. And I find that to be such a great, strong message to families, because I think a lot of times, nowadays most modern parents tend to do it the other way, where they put their kids first. And I think that's such a really, really harmful perspective, because eventually you're putting all of these responsibilities on them, and it's they're the ones that are going to sort of keep you guys together. And I know that's not your intention, but that's what happens. And so I think that's why I like to share the story of my parents, because I know there's been many other couples like that, right? Especially the long-lasting ones, because once again, they're the ones that have to put up with each other, the ones that have to endure each other, right? And so if you are raising kids, then you have to make sure that your relationship's strong first. And so that's why I'll never forget the way they treated each other first, and always tried to fight for each other first, and then we came afterwards, right? And so that's something that I always admire about them. Anyway, fast forward a decade and a half. Well, my mother passed away rather tragically in a very young age. And my dad was stationed in a different country at the time. And when it happened, he came almost instantaneously. It was so fast how quickly my dad came from literally the other half of the world. And I saw his face so distraught, and I remember just seeing how sad, and I just couldn't believe what happened. And he brought us boys together, and we were in the same room, and all of us holding on to each other and hanging on. And my dad was so in love with my mother that he did everything he could to maintain a strong face, become a pillar for us boys. But I know deep down in his heart, he was just filled with grief. And I know if you were to listen to these words from this poem right now, these are the lines that I would think he would hold on to the most. And it comes from the third stanza actually. And it reads like this. Mi querida, should you go first and I remain, to finish with the scroll, and no lengthening shadows shall creep in to make this life seem droll. We've known so much of happiness, and we've had our cup of joy. And memory is one gift of God that death cannot destroy. You see, memory has been twisted and turned sour through multiple incidences in our lives. And unfortunately, we've only been using memory most of the time to recall things that are truly filled with sorrow and pain and bickering and bitterness, anguish. That's not to say that you can't be sad for someone's loss, especially if it was a happy one. But it's a different kind of sadness, right? It's more a joyous sadness. And I wouldn't actually equate it with sadness, because you can still be teary-eyed and emotional when you think of someone that was so loving to you and that you loved in return. And I know till this day that my dad still remembers my mom. You know, it's been close to 27 years now since she left, and that my dad's been without anyone else. And I need to say this, by the way. You know, my dad is a really good-looking man, and he's such a humble guy, and he lives humbly, unnecessarily, but he definitely lives humbly, but he doesn't have to be. And I know that at the town where he lives in, a lot of people know that, you know. And he's had some potentials there that were interested in him. But I think deep down, I think he really just doesn't feel the need to be with anyone else anymore, because I truly believe that the memories that he and my mom had made together have been so strong and wonderful, and that those are the ones are everlasting, right? And so, you know, many of you are probably thinking, oh, he's still in love. I mean, of course he loved her, but he's also a practical guy, right? Like, he lives on this earth now, and so it's not about still being in love. It's about honoring that beautiful memory that you have with someone. And so I think this is something that I also like to share about him, is that, again, it's another testament to how he truly pursued my mother, and how much he fought for her as well. And while he's not fighting for her today, I think a lot of the times, I think the memories fill him in such a deep way that he doesn't really need to express it or externalize it. I mean, every time I talk to him on the phone or go see him in person, like, you know, we don't really talk about my mother very much. And it's not because I don't want to or he doesn't want to. I think we're just both so satisfied with the memory that she left with us that, you know, we just live for one another here on this earth now, instead of living for her. Does that make sense? Anyway, the point being here, guys, is that the memory that you have from someone that loves you and that you love them in a very deep way, it can help you grow. It can help edify you. It can show you things that perhaps weren't possible before. But most importantly, it shows you the wonderful and truly I would say almost beyond understanding of what it means to live with hope. Because my mother was a faith-based woman, and she lived her life that was God-honoring. And so there's something to be said about someone that lives with a message of true hope and true altruistic hope. I think most of the time we try to think of hope in a very humanistic way, and sometimes we don't want to admit it, but eventually we get to the point where we just realize that this sort of humanistic hope, that it's not everlasting, it's not long lasting. And so some of us get to the point where we just fall into misery and fall to our knees and kind of cry for help and just kind of try to understand. But both he and my mother lived a life that was immersed in hope. I think that's why I love this poem so much, because you don't have to live a life that is in sadness when someone passes away. You don't have to live in a state of being of desperation. And more importantly, you don't have to live life where you are holding on to something that isn't there anymore. But rather you live life that is compromising, a life that moves your heart by reminding yourself of those wonderful memories. And then living in gratitude, knowing that this was all part of a wonderful plan, that you didn't even know that that was even part of your plan until your heart is in a state of gratitude. So, before I move on to the next poem, I'm just going to give a brief little message to my father, in case he ever listens to this. And I need to say it in Spanish. decirte algo. Tú eres un gran padre. Y estoy muy agradecido por usted. Te echo de menos. Y creo que tú mereces más de lo que yo puedo expresar, papá. Siempre quise ser como usted. Y quiero ser siendo algo similar a usted. Créame que estoy muy tranquilo en mi corazón porque usted me dio el conocimiento de Dios. Y bueno, a través de Dios he crecido bastante. Y estoy muy agradecido por Dios porque Él te puso en mi vida. Una de las memorias que más me agrada de usted, papá, es cuando el día que defendí mi título de doctorado. Y bueno, a pesar de que no pude verte en persona, yo me imaginé su cara cuando le conté que ya obtení el título. Y bueno, yo sé que usted ya era orgulloso de mí, pero igual quería hacer y obtener este título como un gesto de agradecimiento de usted. Porque usted sacrificó mucho para mí, para nosotros. Y bueno, me da mucha felicidad que yo puedo ser un hijo suyo y que usted también puede ser orgulloso de mí. Y a pesar de tener cosas en mi vida que ocurrieron que no fueron muy agradables, igual usted siempre me quiere, me ama, así que no tengo mucho más que decir a usted, papá, más que lo quiero mucho y que usted siempre fue un gran padre nuestro. Bueno, al fin quiero terminar con esto. Yo sé que no hablamos de la mamá mucho, pero sé que también usted la quería mucho. Y quiero decirle que el amor que ustedes tenieron entre ustedes es muy único y bueno, desafortunadamente no es muy común ahora, hoy en día. Gestos y compromisos, y yo sé que ustedes se querían mucho y también tuvieron que tener muchos argumentos y bueno, muchas complicaciones, pero igual ustedes se querían. Así que bueno, muchas gracias por todo, papá. Y bueno, voy a seguir tratando de darle mucha felicidad a usted porque usted se lo merece bastante, muchísimo. Así que bueno, gracias por todo, papá. All right. Welcome back to the General Speaks podcast, guys. That was just our first poem. Can you believe it? Man, I got a stack of poems tonight, guys, that are poems that touch the heart. So we're not going to read them all tonight, that's for sure. I mean, this series, by the way, is going to be elongated. into several episodes. So this is really just part one of poems that touch the hearts. And so I want to take a short little water break. And those of you who are new to the show, you know, we have a little tradition here. I need you to tap that screen while I hydrate. And the rest of y'all, get ready for another great poem to be read with this wonderful, wonderful composition that you're listening to. Again, if you're interested in who wrote these songs, please go to my Spotify account after the show. And whenever this episode gets posted, you will go to the the description box, and you will find the details there with links to these wonderful, amazing compositionists. All right, guys? All right. I'll be right back. All right, guys. Give me 1 second. All right. I think I got it. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to remind myself of the tracks that I'm using for some of these readings. And I think it was actually one that was just playing that I was going to use next. All right. Here we go, guys. So I read this one before, and it's been what seemed to be a long while since I actually read this one. Guys, I want you to listen to this one again. And this is the first time listening to this next poem, guys. I'm telling you, you're going to fall in love with this poem, and you're never going to forget it, okay? And if you forget it, you need to remind yourself of this poem and just sort of like try to embed it in your mind as well as in your heart. And I'm telling you, there's going to be something that is going to speak to you, and it's just going to be such a wonderful message. This is written by Roy Croft, and this is titled, I Love You. Let's do this. Yourself, but for what you are making of me. And I love you for the part of me that you bring out. And I love you tweak things that you can't help dimly seeing there. All right. It's gonna cut out. All right. Let's see if this works, guys. All right, how about now? All right. Hopefully this connection will last for a while. So I'm going to restart this particular poem. It's called I Love You by Roy Croft. And I'm going to change the actual track here and use this one. Again, if you're interested in the composer, the details of the song title, as well as the name of the composer, then you should go to my Spotify account and go to the episode whenever this one gets uploaded. All right, now this is a lot editing on this one, man. All right, here we go. Here we go. I love you. Not only for what you are, but for what I am when I'm with you. And I love you. Not only for what you have made of yourself, what you are making of me. And I love you for the part of me that you bring out. And I love you for putting your hand into my heaped up heart. And passing over all the foolish, weak things that you can't help dimly seeing there. For drawing me out into the light. All the beautiful things that no one else had looked. Quite far enough to find. I love you because you have done more than any creed could have done to make me good, and more than any fate could have done to make me happy. You have done it without a touch, without a word, without a sign.